And we are back, and it is time for the ElseViews. This is the section where we talk about the comic books we have been reading, the TV shows we might have been watching, movies we've been watching. Basically anything that we want to talk about. Um, I've got a couple comic books. I'm going to split these up to either give Corey time to think of something that he wants to talk about, or
I
to
didn't. I didn't get
interject.
to view much this week. I'm just going to admit it. It was kind of nice to have a breather. Uh, I've got a lot of stuff building up on the DVR that I haven't even looked at. What I'm bummed about, but
Yeah.
yeah, I needed to let the brain kind of just sit and fart and stew in its own juices for a little bit. So you take it.
Yeah. So I will also point out another thing of I am caught up, with all the comics that I'm reading right now are from this past Wednesday of releases. The second one I'll be talking about is one that came out this past week. But both of these are actually picks that I've had over the past 2 weeks for Galactic Radio's pull list. Haha, cheap plug. Um, and the first one I'm going to talk about is The Unstoppable Wasp. This is from Marvel Comics. This is written by Jeremy Whitley with the art by Elsa Charretier. And this is Hank Pym's daughter, biological daughter from his first marriage, who he did not know about, that was raised in the same environment as Black Widow, but quickly had developed her father's love for science. So she got sent to, I think it was called the Science Room or something like that. They give a name where I'm like, really, that's the name? All right, whatever. But that's her backstory. She eventually leaves it. After they've told her, give us your father or build us your father's technology. Do the Pym particles. Discover all those and things. And she did. And she's like, peace out. I'm going to find my dad. And makes it to America and realizes daddy isn't here and all that stuff. But this issue, it's very funny. There's a lot of humor in this issue, and that's the one thing that I've really been enjoying with the Marvel comics, with some of the, I'll call it the line. So like you got like Unstoppable Wasp, Unbeatable Squirrel Girl, Unbelievable Gwenpool. There's humor in there, with how they've been doing these things.
If they're
This
smart, they'll do an advertising campaign with 7 Up because it used to be the Uncola.
yeah. Um, but you got in this book, you have guest appearances by Ms. Marvel and Mockingbird. And towards the end, it got to like it's weird because, you know, not to take anything away from Jeremy, but with how it was written towards the end, I'm like, did a girl write this? Because it had that very strong feminist. So the caveman side of my brain went, oh, a girl must have wrote this. And I'm like, oh wait, no, this is a guy. This is
Jeremy Whitley is a pretty strong feminist voice,
yeah,
coming to you from a male perspective. He's the creator of Princeless, which has been a very good book. A friend of mine actually is one of the artists on the book, and he has kind of tried to bring a lot of that mentality. One of the things is that he's in an interracial marriage, and he's got a child of mixed race, so he wants to make characters, not just of mixed race, but characters that his daughter can read in comics. That's
yeah.
important to him. I follow him on Facebook. He's a really good guy. He's really smart, and the way that he views comics matches up with my thoughts a lot of the time as well.
Yeah.
And he's been really excited about this book.
No, yeah, it's because it's really cool because they go through, and to give a brief overview of the whole issue, um, Nadia Pym, the main character here, is hanging out with with Ms. Marvel, and finds Mockingbird fighting this giant robot, and you see these Nadia's fun facts all in on one of the pages with all the different parts of the robot, like the joints, like how the elbow moves in like an R, it's like an R bracket or whatever it is, and all this stuff, and it's like, all right, we're sort of describing the human body here with how these brackets are going and stuff, and it's really cool. They end up there's a scene where Nadia goes in a scene. There's a part in there where Nadia goes into the robot, takes over it, throws it into herself to where she's basically controlling it by moving herself. Like she's like, stop hitting yourself with it.
Oh, like one of the Pacific Rim
Yeah,
robots.
yeah, like she like it's a Jaeger, or she's a Jaeger with the robots. But she realizes who's in there, and I think the story arc for this, at least first bit, is going to be her gathering what I think they call it the Agents of Girl. And it's like girls in oh, I forgot what the R and the L is, but it's basically like in the Marvel universe, all the really smart women, whether they be villains or good guys, and get them together.
Yeah,
And all that.
so there's something that's been changing in the Marvel universe of late, and it was I think it's a conversation in this book, and it also stems out from other things like Moon Girl
Yep.
and Devil Dinosaur, where Moon Girl is now perceived to be the smartest, the most intelligent character in the Marvel universe. And they make mention of there being a list at one point of the top minds in the world.
Yep.
And they were people like, Iron Man and Mr. Fantastic and all dudes. And it was bopping around in Shield, and Mockingbird's like, yeah, I always kind of thought that was sort of bullshit, because okay, here's a list, it's all guys on it, and it was made by guys, and who's checking the math on this? So they're looking at, why are these people perceived to be the most intelligent? Now, I'm not a big fan of like listing and having the people have ranks of like World's Greatest Detective is something you used to put on Batman.
Yeah.
And I get that, but they had Batman crossover with Sherlock Holmes. He wasn't the world's greatest detective in that. When I was a kid, there was an episode of the Thundercats where they ran into King Arthur and Merlin and all that stuff, and the Sword of Omens fought Excalibur, and Excalibur won, which is like cool, because we shouldn't just automatically assume because of the Thundercats show that they're going to win at everything. That said, it does make sense that if there is some list like that, there's going to be women on it. There have always been scientific women characters in the Marvel Universe, even going all the way back. Yes, they started out being the subservient wife characters. If you look at the Invisible Woman, if you look at the original Wasp, I mean, they were wives to the other scientists and stuff like that, but they still were scientists. And it got, as the universe got more intelligent because time got better and we started realizing, wow, this is some sexist pieces of shit. They became more predominant. And then you see people like Valeria, the daughter of Mr. Fantastic and the Invisible Woman, who's easily smarter than almost everyone. She's tricked Doom. She has completely outthought Doom on time. So she should be on that fucking list. She should have been on there a long time ago. I get it. I get why they're doing it.
Yeah.
And I think it's cool. I think it's smart. I think we're trying to make a more inclusive Marvel universe, and there are creators that are really pushing that, and there are other creators who are just doing the things like they've done for years, and there's no reason not have both.
This is where, when I was, because I thought about this on Friday and Saturday when I read the book, when I read the issue, and I'm like, all right, I want to talk about this. Oh, wait, we just had this. I just triggered Corey on this whole rant about Marvel for a good 2/3 of the last episode. Should I mention this? And I'm like, wait, yeah, because this is sort of what you're getting at with, there's the, sort of the mainstream Marvel where it's, a lot of the same guys writing the same stuff, but then they get for the right character, for the right story that they're wanting to tell, they're getting, you know, great writers to write these stories. You know, like
yeah, but also my problem with Marvel, in the context of me ranting last week, was not the creators. I mean, yes, to a certain degree, Bendis doing events is stupid because Bendis never does a good event. I'm sorry, it's not where his strength is. You put Bendis on Ultimate Spider-Man, you put him on Miles Morales, he does great. You give him an individual character to follow, he's excellent at that. If you put him in his own creator-owned stuff that he's done over the years, it probably won't come out anytime soon, but when it does, it's really good stuff. But the event mentality, the pricing mentality, the back issue, digital mentality, all that stuff, that's where I have the biggest issue with Marvel. But I want to point out that the Marvel that we're seeing these days is very much trying to get more diverse characters out there. Now, you can argue it's like, well, is the best way to make a diverse character having someone of color or someone of a different gender taking over the role of a pre-existing hero? Maybe not. You know, maybe having Captain America be replaced by Sam Wilson, maybe that's not the right way to go. Maybe having Miss Marvel be replaced by Kamala Khan, maybe that's not right. Although I think it's worked great in that regard. Female Thor, any of these things, it's people want to see their classics, especially when their classics are up on the screen and you're trying to get people from the movies maybe into the stores to read these comics. And then they go, I don't recognize any of these dicks. Well, first of all, maybe there being too many dicks is part of the problem. But I love that Marvel's trying something new. I love that they've put out a line, and there's a good 5 or 6 titles at Marvel that I can think of just off the top of my head that have existed over the last couple of years that look like they came straight out of Boom Studios. And Boom Studios is a very inclusive, very diverse line of books. And so to see Marvel being the mainstream company, being the most successful comics company, peace up, DC, I love you. I want it to be you. Seeing Marvel do that when they don't have to is a big deal. You know, and seeing Marvel bring in creators like Jeremy and all of these people who are bringing this new stuff to it is a big deal. And I get that, and I value that. You know, whether or not I'm reading the books, because I'm not reading comics right now, I still see so much value in the fact that they're doing that. And it's a journey. It's not something that's going to happen overnight, because we've had 70 years of Marvel Comics as they were. The expectations are pretty ingrained to a lot of people. But for the next 10 years, you know, when some kid who doesn't want to see the big hulking muscly dude and wants to see a female character they can identify with, or a kid who actually acts like a kid, or a person of color in a book, so that they feel like they can connect to this artwork the same way that I got to when I was a kid, they're going to get the chance to do that. And I think that's amazing.
No, and that's sort of what I always have to try to tell people in the kindest way that I can. For a lot of the people, you've had, you know, if you've been a fan of Captain America, you've had 75 years of Steve Rogers being Captain America. You know, so to go and say, oh well, you know, we're gonna bring in Sam Wilson and have him be Captain America. You know, the guy who was a sidekick, you know, the guy who was Falcon and all that, and we're gonna do this, and they hit it in there with the book. You know, like everyone's like, you know, hashtag take back the shield. And it's like, what about the little kids? You know, what about the kids like Donald Glover, who wanted to be Spider-Man, but, oh wait, Spider-Man, white guy. And then, you know, and it takes just little things. And now one of Marvel's top characters is Miles Morales, a half black, half Latino Spider-Man,
who is an amazing character. Because they put so much effort into making an amazing character. But the other thing is people like to skip over this. In the 90s, this happened. It's just that in the 90s, it was all white dudes replacing other white dudes. So, I mean, Steve had been replaced before by U.S. Agent. And shortly before Sam took over, he was replaced by Bucky, the Winter
Yeah.
Soldier. Tony was replaced by Rhodey. So not a white guy, but still, for a long time you didn't
But
even
still
know. Thor was replaced
with
by Thunderstrike. Batman was replaced by Azrael. Superman was replaced by 4 dudes.
yeah.
Wonder Woman was replaced. It's happened before. Comics are a continuous shift and then shift back.
Yeah.
The stories are going to reset. The only thing I can see is people saying, yeah, but right now I want to read a Tony Stark book, or right now I want to read a Bruce Banner book. So why are there not both things? And I get that. I don't disagree, and it seems to me that this is a perfect opportunity to like reinvent what the Ultimate Universe was by having a movie universe series of books.
Which they do in a way. They do with the Disney XD stuff. They have those I forget what they call them. It's like the Marvel Universe books. And then they have uh preludes to, or the road journey to, the next
Yeah, but those
movie.
are always iffy. People don't
Yeah.
want a direct thing from the movies. They want something recognizable. And the Ultimate Universe, for a short time, for too short a time, was really good for that.
Yeah.
The problem is that it came out, and then the movies, they either predated the movies and they had to change things, or they didn't line up, or the Marvel Universe got totally fucked by Jeff Loeb at some point. And Mark Millar wasn't doing himself any favors either with some of the shit he did with X-Men. I just think that you already published too many fucking comics, Marvel. You already are just saturating the fucking market like crazy. At least think about what you're putting out. Instead of putting out 10 fucking Inhumans books or Inhuman versus X-Men shit again, try to put out books that maybe will attract readers who are being underserved. And you're doing that with these things like Unstoppable Wasp and the new Champions book and Unbeatable Squirrel Girl and things like that. You're doing some good strides in that. It just seems like there's another couple of things. Kids books is another thing I think that is still just way too underserved by all companies.
Yeah. Like there's honestly with Marvel, I think there's only Spidey besides the Disney XD
which is probably
tie-ins.
going to end because the cartoon series is going to end and a new one's going to boot up.
Yeah. But I don't know. But honestly, Unstoppable Wasp, check it out. We will have links to it in our show notes. The second book that I picked up is from Image Comics. And there is a tie-in with the old discussion in the new, because this one has a quote by Brian Michael Bendis. Can you do me a favor? Can you remove the picture on the screen so I can read the quote behind the picture? Because but this is God Country #1. This is written by Donny Cates with art by Jeff Shaw, Jason Wordie, and John J. Hill. And the quote from Brian Michael Bendis is so much fun to watch creators find that next level. Go, Cates, go. But yeah, so this is, you follow, this first issue is like one act in a TV show. It is that quick. You don't even meet Emmett Quinlan, the guy who is in here with the description. You meet his son, who's taking care of his father, or helping out his father who has Alzheimer's, and dementia. Those brain diseases and stuff and he's trying to reason with both his wife, and they have a young daughter right there, and the police officer, to not put his dad in hospice, in senior living. And a lot of it is a failing argument, because everyone's like, he's sick, you can't help him, get him to people who can actually help him, sort of deal. He's like, no, it's not what my dad would want, not what my dad would want, and all that. all the time there is it's starting to rain heavier and heavier until finally, boom, big storm as um his wife and daughter leave because dad comes down the stairs and yells at the intruders, who is his daughter-in-law and granddaughter, scaring his granddaughter. This is Emmett I'm talking about now. And so they leave, and then boom, big storm, and there's something that's going to fall and crush everyone, and Emmett Quinlan comes through with this monster, like I'm talking anime level size here, sword, and just slices it, saving everyone. That is the end of the first issue. That is the basics of what happened. That the and I love this story. I love the concept because it's you see at the end he gets his faculties back because of this magical sword. You also see what's coming for its sword, and you're like, oh shit's gonna hit the fan. But this seems really cool, like a really cool story. One that I recommended it this week just because it was a number one. Number ones at Image Comics are easy to recommend. Especially from Image, because it's with some of the other ones, it's like, okay, you have to come in at a story arc, and even then you sort of have to understand what happened in the past, to get caught up and stuff like that. And I'm like, God Country, here we go. Boom. I will tell you right now, for a little sneak peek of this next episode of Galactic Radio's Pull List, there's going to be a new number one from Image Comics that I will be recommending. Partially because it's number one, but mainly because it's written by Charles Soule, and I love Charles Soule's work. But yeah, God Country. The art in here is amazing. I didn't realize it was three separate people. I even saw that it was drawn by the other people, but the style, usually when you see that, it's in like a book, like
a book trying to catch up.
Yeah, a book trying to catch up, or like
you can say Bendis book. You can say a Bendis event book.
Gotham Academy. Towards the end, they did the yearbook story arc where it was a bunch of different stories, and and some of them were written by other people as well. But you can tell, when there's different artists, because you can tell, Chip Zdarsky's style from Veronica Fish's, from Fiona Staples, from Babs Tarr's. You could tell all their styles apart. Where it was like all seamless, and I'm like, there were three artists here. Are you sure it's not artist, penciler, penciler, inker, color
Letterer,
artist,
right?
Yeah, letterer stuff. No, they're all just doing the art. Okay, they're great. That communication, getting it all to gel in there, getting the same style was awesome. And yeah, Beat does point out something that he worries that some writers try too hard to get a movie adaptation and forget the strengths of the medium. Like some game developers. I could see that, but it's one of these, like, the story was still there. It was just the setup of this was the fact that you were setting up Emmett Quinlan is damaged, not in the psychopathic damaged, but in his brain is gone, his memories are gone. He does not realize he is yelling at his son, at probably one of his best friends with the police officer, and his granddaughter. He's just, he's still remembering in the past with his wife, and who's not there. It's alluded that she's dead, and he's just doing it because it's what he remembers. It's the only thing he remembers now, and it's such a strong book. I really enjoyed it.
Premise wise, it sounds, I'm sure execution, it's very different, but it sounds similar to what I remember of the first issue of Mark Miller's Starlight that was from Image Comics, probably about 2 years ago now. But that's okay, because it's all on how you do it. Can I also just say, just real fast, I know Beat had put the page for where you can get the comic on Image Comics site up. I love Image Comics because when you look at their page, where it says buy digital, which is right underneath the cover of the book. Directly underneath that is find a local comic shop.
Yes.
So it's giving you the opportunity. It's not just giving you, okay, you're here on the site, so you're going to buy it digitally. It's here's your choice, and what you should do as one of your choices is decide if you want to get it digitally, you can get it from us, or you can go to your local comic shop and get it that way. I think that's fantastic. I really love that they still support the retailers and they make it important, even just going directly to where they've got their site online.
Yeah, that's one of the things, like, with, to, compare myself to Image Comics for a little bit here.
You're going to say that at the end of every pull list that you say,
Yep.
remember to support your local comic shop. I know that, and I love
Yep.
that. I'm very proud of you every time I hear it.
Every time. It's because it's one of those things, like, yes, where and I will admit it, I don't pay for a lot of the comics. I did start, changing things up a little bit, thanks to Hoopla, thanks to my local library, in that they offer up the new Archieverse books are right there in the Hoopla app. So it's like, I don't have to pirate those. Yay. But when my comic book store, my local comic book store that I really like, Nostalgia Inc., they have, besides giving them cheap pops on my podcast that people listen to, when they do free comic book day, I'm there. When they're doing events, I try to help out with all the stuff that I can. When I do get the extra money, it's like, all right, what comic book should I go get? And I will go and buy the comic book. And there was a while when I worked at my last job where I was talking with the owner, and we're just bullshitting about comic books, and I'm like, yeah, I'm telling him what I'm reading, and he's, yeah, I'm gonna check that out and all that stuff. And it's a cool thing to have, is a local comic book shop. So it's where I always encourage people at the end of Galactic Radio's pull list to go support your local comic book stores, because these are people you more likely you probably know that are trying to make a living, and they're trying to make a living by selling things that you would buy anyways. So that, unless Corey, you have anything you want to add?
Nope.
Nope.
I think
All
you
right.
nailed it.
That is it for the ElseViews. We will be right back.